So with RGB, we're just going to go File and export this as a JPEG or a PNG. I like JPEGs because the file sizes are a little bit smaller for social media. We can size this down to any size that we want, or we can go back to our canvas size, create a new canvas if it's an Instagram post to 1080 by 1080 pixels, and start to get that all done. So that's easy. Export as a JPEG, ready for the web. So here's the really tricky part. So we designed this all in RGB, which is a digital environment color mode. And as you know, CMYK is what we need to have our print documents in. So now we need to convert this to CMYK and get it ready to export. So this is the tricky part. I wanted to create these vibrant colors, and CMYK just doesn't give you a lot of great options with blending modes and creating those really cool dynamic colors. So here's what's going to happen. Normally you would just go up to image and say, okay, well, let's just switch it to CMYK mode to get the print, add print ready to go. Changing modes will discard some adjustment layers. Change the mode anyway. We're going to have to click on OK. Changing modes can affect the appearance of smart objects. So we have all these filters and blending modes and smart objects. When you switch over to the CMYK environment, blending modes act a lot differently because you're working in a different color mode. So we're going to click on Don't Rasterize because we want to keep this as vector as possible. So let's see what happens. Ooh, now that is ugly. Look at all the wonderful, beautiful, vibrant colors we lost when we converted it to CMYK. And this is a common problem with a designer and something we have to deal with. The CMYK, we can go in and we can go back and edit these colors to bring out more vibrance, and that is possible, but it'll never be the same as what we had in RGB mode. That's just the reality of CMYK. There's just not as many available bright colors in this mode because we need to have an ink to be able to print on a piece of paper, and there's just not that many ink colors out there compared to colors on a screen. So one thing we could do, I'm just doing Command Z to go back. Let's try it a little bit differently. So we're going to go to convert it to CMYK, mode CMYK. And what we're going to do is instead of clicking OK, we're going to merge it. So what's going to happen is it's going to merge all of our layers into one file. So you'll notice it still kind of gets a little dull, but it really helped retain a lot of the vibrant colors. It's never going to be as vibrant as RGB. That's okay. That's just part of how it's the difference between the two colors. You can't avoid that as a designer. But at least we can merge the layers and it'll be a little bit better. So now we're ready to export. So let's go ahead and export. We're going to save this as a PDF, which is standard when you're exporting ads. And we also want to make sure that before we did all this, just made sure we had our live area, and we already kind of checked this before. There's nothing extending outside of the live area. We are great to go. So let's go to File, Save As, Photoshop PDF. And Illustrator has more powerful export options when it comes to doing this, but since we had to do so much photo heavy work, I decided to keep this in Photoshop. I don't always do my flyers and posters and ads in Photoshop, but this was a special case. So let's save. We want to do press quality. High quality print will actually be okay for a printer or a magazine, but I like to do press quality. We're going to uncheck preserve Photoshop editing capabilities because if I had that checked, that means it keeps all the original editability of the thing. But since we merged our layers, it doesn't really matter. But it adds to the file size, and printers rarely need to get into your document. You should be sending them a document they don't need to get into. So I always, for both programs, Illustrator and Photoshop, I unclick Preserve Photoshop Editing Capabilities whenever I'm sending a final PDF to a printer. Just make sure we're at a nice high resolution, which is 300. All this is going to be set up when you click on Press Quality, so I don't think we need to change a thing. So all we did was unclick Preserve Photoshop Editing Capabilities, and we're ready to save the PDF. And it's going to add that bleed, and it's going to be the right document that they're going to need. And when it comes to print and crop marks, this is where Photoshop fails a little bit because it doesn't have a lot of the crop marks and printer marks that some printers require. For magazines, they don't like you to put crop marks. They just want you to make sure you have the bleed built into the document. But some bigger things like banners and posters, they may require you to have crop marks. And so you would definitely want to bring this into Adobe Illustrator and export it as a PDF with crop marks, because Photoshop just doesn't have that ability to put the crop marks in there for you. But you would just open up a similar document in Adobe Illustrator and put your JPEG in there and export it with the crop marks. Or a lot of times with posters, I will already have it in Adobe Illustrator because I won't be creating in Photoshop. But this was a different case because the entire ad required Photoshop and some of its editing capabilities. So that's one of the few times I do a flyer or poster for print in Adobe Photoshop. So we have our digital items or digital kind of RGB ready to go. We have this print ad ready to go. If the client requires all these different sizes for social media, we have everything as smart layers and everything that can be sized up and down without any issue. So here we go. So hopefully you enjoyed this project. It's a little bit different than prior projects I've done, and hopefully a little bit more intermediate for you guys, especially those who already have kind of that basic software foundation.